has been chosen.
Alright, greetings and salutations, everybody. This is Brian from Tickets Please Reviews. We're taking a look at all the films that I've seen so far this year, from the first one in early January to one that I just saw, I think, maybe in time for the 4th of July. Although it's not quite a
I warn you.
pure list of it may not have been just like, January from June. I think it'll be fine as far as
Firebird 710 if you don't hurry up and type 69.
as a way of taking a look at everything and going, oh, okay, so that's where that fits in this list. I just, more than anything, I just want you to see the big picture of everything that I've gone through so far this year, and hopefully with no future internet problems or anything like that, we shall be fine as far as taking a look at everything, and hopefully you'll get a good look at everything.
I'm going on my break now.
Alright, without further ado, let's start things off with the films I've seen, starting from the first one and going all the way to the final one. As you can see, it's not like a pure 2024 list. I have seen a couple of those titles, but I got a long way to go in that aspect. And there are future videos I plan on doing on some of these, so yep, I'm going to call them spoilers, but I'm not going to actually reveal any spoilers as to the films themselves. So you can watch this video and not feel like, oh, he ruined that film for me. Dang you. No, that's not going to happen. Alright, let's kick things off with the first film that I've seen in 2024. That would be The Great Dictator. I usually try to see a really good film to start things off. A stone cold classic, and be able to say, alright, what I think of it. Just try to get things here off on a good start and everything. As it turns out, it was definitely a really, really good film. Alright. I felt like Charlie Chaplin was at the peak of his powers here. Good mix of comedy and more...
Hotter soup. You're up.
hold up. There you go. In my opinion, it's one of the top films of the year. I mean, in lesser hands, this could have been really, really bad, but thankfully, that's not the case here. Number 2 film was Frozen. I finally got around to seeing some of these films for the first time this year, and Frozen was definitely good.
Let's go on a trek.
I kind of felt like there was a nice depth to the characters, and I felt like the story itself was very interesting,
Jill has been chosen. Let's take a look at the trek.
and kind of had a pretty good amount of depth. There was some humor there. There was some sadder moments as well, although nothing nearly as sad as, say, Coco or anything like that. I would say, though, it was, at the end of the day, it was a good film. So Frozen would definitely end up on the B tier.
Let's move forward to.
Alright, what's after that? That would be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. One of the things I've been doing this year has been trying to tackle all these films that would fit into the movie forums big list every year. It's like 52 films for the first part of it, and then maybe 100 films after that.
Let's move forward one.
For the nightmare mode, which I usually don't try to do because that just, I think it just requires too much of an effort. But more power to them for actually doing that.
You spun a 4.
I'm going on record here and
I warned you.
saying after seeing Frozen, Snow White kind of felt a bit plain to me. The villainess, the evil queen, easily overshadowed Snow,
The children
and
bank is now worth 11,050.
outside of hi ho, it's off to work. It's off to work we go.
Al Dog 30.
None of the songs really resonated. There's a good reason they don't talk about the washing hands and faces with anywhere near as much enthusiasm as that one. I'm fully glad I saw it. I felt like the animation was fine, especially for being a 1930s film, but
Let's go on
the storyline just felt too simple to me, and I kind of felt Snow White was kind of a weakish character at the end of the day. So I can't give it, say, any more than, say, a C+. Maestro. I've referred to this as Midstro a couple times, and with good reason. I felt like Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan did a pretty good job in the roles of Leonard Bernstein as long-beloved wife. But I felt like they kind of took these... I kind of felt like the story wasn't all that good. You know, I mean...
You win nothing.
I think you could have come up with a good story that at the same time actually kind of focused on some of the accomplishments he's had. Too much of it just kind of felt like skimming a Wikipedia article. And I counted a couple of scenes that were like that. You know, one of the first rules they tell you when making films is show, don't tell. This film is guilty of telling, but not showing. And I think they kind of took the least interesting side of it, you know. Oh, look. Yes, he loves his wife, but, you know, he kind of has guys on his side. And although there's nothing against that, you can't make an entire film off of it. At the end of the day, I felt like the script shouldn't have been nominated for an Academy Award. And yeah, it's basically Midstro. Speaking of mid, let's talk about the front page. The film with teamed up Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau as reporter and his top reporter and the head of a newspaper. As they try to get to the top of a story, he really wants to quit and marry Susan Sarandon, but, well, gosh almighty, Walter Matthau just won't let him. It also features Molly Malloy, a character played by Carol Burnett. It's a little bit over the top. I didn't have so much an issue with that per se. I think some people really did. But I felt like at the end of the day, it felt like I was just watching another version of His Girl Friday, but it was less interesting. And you know, just throwing in a bunch of tough talk isn't going to necessarily win me over on that. You gotta put a little bit more sizzle with the steak, and there wasn't enough there. And next up would be Knives Out. I probably did things wrong. I saw Glass Onion. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. But I hadn't seen Knives Out until this year when it finally showed up on Tubi, of all places. Yeah, Tubi's got a nice selection of films that come from... Basically, you got like your mainstream films that everyone talks about. You got like a bunch of other films that are maybe a little bit older in nature, but still good. I mean, there's no other way to look at it than this. I think it's definitely a place you need to take a look at as far as if you're wanting to see a bunch of films. I think you could do a lot worse than Tubi, although like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the originals. So keep that in mind as well. As for the film Knives Out itself, it was fine. I kind of felt like they didn't spend as much time on Benoit Blanc as Glass Onion did, and I kind of felt like he was definitely an interesting character in this. Where the film really kind of faltered for me a little bit was when you get past the story and the characters and everything, it almost kind of plays out a bit too obvious. Having said it, nice cast, and I think Ana de Armas was pretty good as the designated average person who ends up getting stuck with Blanc a lot. The whole thing just felt like a somewhat lesser version of the Glass Onion. No, not that low. I would give it about a B- though. Next up, Harlem Rides the Range. This is one of those films that was on the list. Basically, wanted to see a 1930s Western. And you know what I thought? Let's try to mix things up a little bit and try to watch a Western involving... Give me 1 second here. About a singing cowboy, sort of like... Gene Autry, but this one actually starred Herbert Jeffrey, and I felt like his character was tough enough. He could ride around the range comfortably, he could sing pretty nicely, but the story about him was pretty weak. The story about the film itself, the dialogue was kind of too on the nose on the point. The plot felt like something that maybe Matlock could have done in the Wild West. It just didn't really do well for me at the end of the day, so I'm going to give that one a D. Next up is probably, in my opinion, one of the worst films I've seen this year, and that is The Monster Walks. Now, this one is supposedly about a giant gorilla that is kept underground and is supposedly killing people in a mansion, one that has an inheritance and everything. Except, of course, is it really the gorilla or is it somebody else? Not spoiling, but I will say everything about this just kind of felt dull and dreary. The writing was not good. The acting could have been better. It just, and you could feel the animal was kind of being tortured, which is not a good feel for a film. So at the end of the day, it's getting a D-, and I'll have to learn to live with it. Well, just like I started off January with one of the best films of the year, I hit February with one of the best films of the year, and that is Detour. My God, this is like a 70-minute film noir that really feels like really feels like it hits the spot here, because it's very punchy, very dark. It's about a guy who decides he wants to find his girlfriend, has to go cross country, so he hitchhikes and quickly finds himself in quicksand. As a person he rides with actually dies, and apparently he picks the wrong person to lie to about this by pretending to be this person, and yeah, things quickly turn dark. I mean, it's like 60, 70 minutes long, and honestly, it's in my top 2 of the year. Alright, we can do it there. Give me a second. There you go. It's definitely, it gets the second A of the group. Next up, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse continued my good luck, because I thought it was well written. I kind of felt like voice acting was good. The score was incredible. The action was definitely on point. And for those people arguing that superhero movies are dead, yeah, I don't think you've seen this one, because I kind of feel like the Miles Morales saga, it's going to some nice places, even though I wasn't the hugest fan of how it ended, but I felt like it did about the best that it could, considering how it planned on ending it. Also, not the greatest fan of the villain in this one. And I think they refer to him as like a villain of the week a couple times, and honestly, too much of the film, it kind of felt like that. I'm kind of hoping that they nail the landing here. If so, then this might be the best trilogy since the... no. Do I dare say The Godfather? Because that might be a bridge too far. I kind of feel like the first two Spider-Mans really hit the mark, and then the third one, I don't know. I've never seen it. From what I hear, it kind of was pretty bad. Then we hit Antarctica, A Year on Ice. And honestly, this wasn't a bad documentary, focusing on the people that spend as it says on the tin, a year in Antarctica. I kind of felt like the human interest story here is good, and the definitely a lot of definitely gives you some food for thought. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you could do with a documentary that focuses on a year in the life. I kind of feel like it's a B minus. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on it. Maybe not. Next up, one of the directors I kind of feel like in the last couple of years I've really gotten to appreciate a lot more is Stanley Kubrick. Now he's a guy who kind of, to me, the ones I've seen of him were the ones where he did trilogies like 2001, which I'm definitely due for a review of that one, and trying to think what the other one was. I think maybe it was the one he did in Vietnam. But anyway, in my opinion, it feels like the ones where he does the single films with and everything. I think those are the ones I've really enjoyed. Pat's Support last year was really good. I did like Dr. Strangelove, but in my opinion, The Killing might be the best. I mean, might be among the best I've seen this year. It's basically a heist movie whose only biggest complaint is that it kind of rips off Dragnet with its narration, but everything else about it is really good, particularly in its denouement. Not going to say any more than that, but you will definitely feel it. Another thing I really noticed in the last few years is the fact that I probably would have been one of those that would have been captivated by Bruce Lee. Enter the Dragon, I saw that a couple years ago, and I thought actually it was pretty good. Fist of Fury, not quite so much, although you definitely have that effortless charisma that Lee has and everything. I think the thing that kind of hurts the film a little bit, though, it kind of feels like the story just goes on, kind of drones on a little bit more than it should have. I mean, the whole, we got... Yep, we got the whole racism thing in China. No, I think the film actually was shot in Japan or something. Yeah, it was shot in Japan, but they kind of did this whole sequence where he, at one point, manages to break a board saying, "No Chinese men in the park," and that was a big blow right there for humanity and everything. Anyway, the film has some good action sequences, but I kind of feel like the story kind of kept this from going to the next level. So Fist of Fury is going to get a C+ for me. Another director that I kind of hoped that was actually going to do big things for me this year was, I mean, last few years has been Woody Allen. I know about his past and everything. I've been treading slowly. I really enjoyed watching. Give me 1 second here. It's going to hit me. Was it something I saw in 22 then? Maybe? But yeah, it was Midnight in Paris. That's right. Midnight in Paris. That was a film with Owen Wilson as Woody Allen, as he has to make some big decisions, and it really did a great job of showing Paris and its excitement and its energy and everything. I mean, even though you're kind of like, wait, what time period are we in anyway? But Annie Hall is probably Woody Allen is most Woody Allenist, and for some reason it kind of reminded me a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm. In both the sarcasm and the kind of a similar nebbish character that says and does outrageous things. I've kind of felt like a joke. I mean, it kind of took a little while to warm up to it. He kind of feels almost unredeemable in the first 10 minutes or so, and then for some reason something clicked, and I think maybe it had to do with the focus on Diane Keaton and her character. And the film actually managed to have pretty good chemistry for a while before finally kind of faltering with that final joke, which kind of felt like a bridge too far. At the end of the day, I think Annie Hall probably earned its way to a C. It could have been better, but, you know, considering where it was in the opening 10-15 minutes, I think it's lucky it didn't end up worse than it was. Coming up next, I know one of the things I do is Oscars, but to be honest with you, I kind of did a poor job of actually watching everything for the Oscars before the ceremony. The only one I actually really had time to watch was The Last Repair Shop, which is kind of sad. But the story about it's actually pretty good. You got these 4 people, different backgrounds and everything, as they work on repairing and fixing up instruments for younger people in the school system in Los Angeles. I mean, at times it does feel a little bit forced in what it's trying to do, but at the same time, it's so nice you will not mind so much. Yeah, I'm giving The Last Repair Shop a B. Speaking of films around a B range, Pinocchio is next on my list. And although Pinocchio seemed on the surface about as sweet and gentle with his character as they were with Snow White, of course, as a boy, he's a little bit mischievous as well. Kind of had some nice support things around him. The whole thing about the love between Geppetto and Pinocchio, a little frustration, but at the same time, you kind of feel the love between the two of them. Oh, wait, this is actually... And then you got Jiminy Cricket, who's trying to do the best he can, but he's struggling. And then the film actually goes some dark places, which, you know, if I was a lot younger, this would be nightmare fuel. I wasn't sold by everything that happened. I kind of felt like the Blue Fairy was a little too much hand-waving narrative solution. But you know what? I did enjoy Pinocchio enough that I would probably say it's about a B-. Now we swerve over to modern animation, and that would be Lupin III the First. Kind of a confusing title, but you gotta realize that maybe they're trying to look at this as the start of a new series of Lupin. This one happens to be completely computer generated, which is unusual for this series. It kind It was nice to see the characters and their antics again, especially after really enjoying the Castle of Cagliostro a few years ago. I kind of feel like at the end of the day, the story was a bit on the simple side, and some of the characters seem to be awfully conveniently deciding to join together because, it's because of story convenience, but still, I'd give it about a C+. I had some fun with it. And sometimes that's all that matters.
Everyone in chat wins 1,000 points.
Well, the next couple films on my list are both films that I end up giving solid C's to. The first one, it shouldn't be a huge shock. It's a Netflix original by the name of True Spirit. The story kind of plays kind of weird. One half of it feels like something out of, it's like a Disney original film. Like, we gotta rebuild this boat in time in order to do this big thing. You know what would be perfect? If we did a Colby Calais song in front of it. And then you got moments where, like, for example, where she's facing a gigantic storm towards the end of the film, and it kind of hits you with a wallop. Also, it was kind of weird to see that one of the actors playing the mother is actually Anna Paquin. Could it have been that long ago since the piano? But I wish Netflix had stuck with the lane and gone with it. I mean, were we trying to do a more serious look at a teenage girl and her challenges to navigate around the world? I think we would have gladly seen that one. Are we trying to do more of a silly Disney Channel-esque type film about said thing? I don't know. I think I'd wait for the documentary. And honestly, next one, I guess might be a little disappointing. I kind of maybe got a little bit hyped up for this, especially when I learned that Jeff Bridges was the lead of this, but Tron was kind of a nothing burger of a film. It's basically, hey, you stole my game thing that actually makes a fortune in arcade money and everything. So let's just go and try to fight things on the inside. The special effects, I guess, in '82 were actually pretty impressive, but doesn't really play all that well now.
You've earned 0 points.
The ending just kind of feels kind of weak sauce.
3.
And at the end of the day, it's nothing that I would necessarily say you need to rush home and try to see.
The wheel has landed on 3.
If anything, maybe a C might be a little too generous for this. I'll think about it maybe later on and decide. Next step, of course, would be Nothing Sacred. One of the things I had to see this year was one of those screwball comedies. Honestly, I think I've seen all the good ones. The Philadelphia Stories, His Girl Fridays. Trying to think what the other ones would be. Bringing Up Baby. This kind of felt like a lesser one. But I think the chemistry between the two leads kind of helped carry the day a little bit. And also helping is the fact that storyline has a nice punch of cynicism to it. Basically, a girl is faking an illness so she can go on a big trip to New York City and have everyone basically show their kinder interest towards her and everything. And, there's nothing wrong with maybe New York thinking maybe we could be a little bit less harsh, but it didn't really do much for me at the end of the day. It wasn't quite as hysterical as it could have been. I felt like the doctor that got drugged along for the ride wasn't all that interesting. Yeah, C+ seems about right for it. Speaking of C+s, Next film also heads out west, and that would be Robin Hood. And let's take a look at the animated version of the Robin Hood story with foxes and bears and whatever else we can come up with. The voice acting wasn't too bad. The songs were okay, but at the end of the day, the story just felt too simple, too plain. Same issue I would probably have with Pinocchio and to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Honestly, like I said, Pinocchio probably be best of these because it's a little more Nightmare Fuel-ish, but which is something. I mean, you could probably have this on the background and enjoy it, I guess, but just don't expect that much. Desierto is next, and yeah, I just seem to have had a better run of films that were just okay or maybe slightly better. And honestly, despite what I thought was a pretty provocative premise about a guy played by Negan from The Walking Dead basically turning into an extra border patrol agent and hunting down a bunch of immigrants from the Mexico border. I mean, it's a very provocative premise, but the film doesn't really do all that much with it. And at the end of the day, you know, considering it also stars
It's map time.
you know, at the end of the day, considering it stars Gael Garcia Bernal, and it's actually directed by Jonas Cuarón, who is the son of Alfonso Cuarón. I mean, at least the desert looks lovely, but you know, at the end of the day, that's not going to mean much. You want a little bit more than that, and it just kind of felt underwhelming. All right, let's knock a couple of the things out of the way with this one. The next film, it kind of broke the wasn't that good run, and that would be Charade. I mean, the argument that Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn could convincingly play lovers, that's a bit of a push. Having said it, I like the idea of the multiple identities that Grant had. I like the thriller aspects of the film. At the end of the day, there is enough about it I would recommend it. And it did ultimately make my film of the month for the month of March. So there's that working in its favor at the end of the day. But just understand it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. I mean, I felt like this should have ended up in the A-, B+ tier. It fell a bit short, but what's left is just solidly entertaining, and that's the feeling I'll go with it. The next step would be the Super Mario Brothers movie, and you know what? I think the whole thing about Chris Pratt and the Italian accent thing is kind of an issue. I mean, to me, it didn't really feel like an issue. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but it doesn't sound like Mario. I mean, I'm more worried about people that just kind of phone in their performances, and I don't think Chris Pratt did. I mean, I feel like he got overshadowed by Jack Black's Bowser, maybe to a slightly lesser extent than a slightly lesser extent than maybe
You'll get a random multiplier between 2 and 10x on each spin.
Anya Taylor-Joy is Princess Peach, but I think he does well enough, I guess. And the animation's very nice, very lovely, very colorful. It pops pretty good, in my opinion. And the other thing that really kind of screams to mind as far as taking a look at it. They throw in a lot of extra things that, you know, if you're a big fan of Nintendo or the Mario Brothers, you probably will have already seen this and probably think I'm rating it too low. Alright, now for something completely different. How about a modern film noir that takes place in the same world as... is written by the same person that the talented Mr. Ripley. Ah, sure, why not? Two Faces of January has a couple of good performances here from Oscar Isaac and Viggo Mortensen as two of the three leads of this. Kirsten Dunst does fine, I guess, as well. I feel like the story could have been a little bit more punchy than it ultimately was, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with a crisp, cool crime thriller. And hello, looks like we got a few tiers have yet to be filled out. We're about to fill both of them, I think, with these two of these next three entries. Starting with all the places, honestly, I wanted Easy Rider. I really wanted Easy Rider. I did not get it, so I ended up going with a different motorcycle film, and honestly, kind of a dumb one. Yep, a Netflix original about Mexican siblings that decide to revive their relationship by going on motorcycle